that is dedicated to your success. On today's program, we have a really, really cool and amazing guest, Ellen Violette, who is here to help us understand what it is all about books and why it's so important. Now, for those of you that are out there and thinking, I got a story in me, whether it's a business book, it's a personal book, it's a how-to book, it's a here's why you shouldn't do what I did book. There's a lot of different stories that are out there. And one of the biggest things that are really super important in terms of thinking about getting the word out is that when you are an author, you increase your immediate credibility, right? When you are in a room of people and you start hearing, I wrote this book, I wrote that book, people immediately start to look at you completely different. And so that's why we brought Ellen on the program today, because Ellen specializes in helping you figure out how to write your book, how to actually make it work for you, and how to go from there. But before we bring Ellen on, let me just kind of give you a little bit of background about her so you know why she is such an incredible guest and why you should be listening and taking copious notes on what she says on today's program. So Ellen helps inspirational speakers, coaches, and founders write a bestseller in 7 days. You heard me right, a bestseller, folks. Launch to #1 bestseller and use their book to grow their business, make a bigger impact, make more money, and leave a lasting legacy through her coaching and author service company, Books Open Doors. She's got multiple #1 international bestsellers and is the author of 9 books, award-winning book strategist, host of the Books Open Doors podcast, and she's also a Grammy-nominated songwriter. We're going to ask you about that too. That's pretty cool. Her mission is to make the world a better place, one book at a time. So without any further ado, let me introduce you, Ellen.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for coming. So, Ellen, let me ask you, what kinds of people are you typically talking with that start coming to you and saying, I don't know, should I write a book? Or I have an idea, what should I do? How does that work?
Well, what happens is exactly what you said. They just don't know where to start, and they're looking for some guidance for that. And there are some people that I tell them they shouldn't write a book, at least not right now. I had one woman come to me and she thought her book was going to finance her business. And I said, no, you got it backwards. Your business is going to finance your book. So she was not coachable. And I said, I can't help you. Usually people come and they have a story. A lot of times they'll come and they've already written it or they're already writing it. And I really try to tell people in the future not to do that, because the way to know that your book's going to be a #1 bestseller before you write it is to do the marketing research before you write it. And instead, what happens for most authors is they just get an idea and they start writing. And that's a problem, because you have to find something to write about that you're passionate about, that you'll be able to sustain through the whole process, #1. And you also have to do something that is something that your audience wants. So what's the problem that's keeping them up at night? And so many people get this wrong. And it's not just for writing books, it's for writing your mission statement. It's for your business. I mean, it's really the core of your business. What problem do you solve? And a lot of people will talk about how they solve problems that are not the problems that are keeping people up at night, or they're not tangible. And so they all kind of sound alike, like live your dream, that kind of stuff. So what makes you unique? What makes you different? And why should people listen to you? And why should people buy your book? So you always want to look for, what niche is your book in, but then how is it different from the other ones? And why, when somebody goes to Amazon and they see all these books on a page, are they going to go, that's the one I want? And that's really understanding the psychology of your audience.
That's interesting,
So
because
let me
that's
ask
what
you,
we talk about when we talk about businesses, starting a business. So many
Right.
people say, hey, I want to start a business because I got this great idea. Well, you didn't do any market research. What if no one wants to buy the great thing that you have? That's really interesting, Ellen. I never thought about approaching a book from the same standpoint.
Right. Well, even if you have a business where you've done the research to find out what your business should be, you still need to go deeper to see, okay, what are the other books that are out there? Because one, how is yours different? How are you going to position it so people are going to look at that one and go, yeah, that's the one I need, or that's the one I want. So a lot of times, you'll go into a niche and you just see all these books and they all sound so similar. And what happens when that happens is your mind goes, well, I don't know which one to buy, and you don't buy any of them.
So let me ask you, Ellen, when someone is sitting there, what are some of the fears that hold people back from moving forward with writing a book?
Great question. Well, first of all, they just don't know where to start. That's number one. So they just don't start, or they don't reach out to get help. I'm not good enough. I don't know enough. Who am I to think I could be an expert? Any others? Patricia, you were once there. I mean, I was lucky because I did so well in school and I was always an overachiever. So to me, it was like it never occurred to me that I couldn't write a book.
No, you said it. Who am I to think that I have anything that anybody wants?
Yeah.
And a lot of days I'm still there anyway. And I'll be driving down the road with my husband, right, and talking about this and that. And he's like, nobody else knows this. I mean, not that nobody else knows this, but
right.
There's so many people that don't know this. And it's so second nature to you.
Mm-hmm.
That's where you're an expert. And that's where you need to share.
Yeah. Well, I will say, I think there were, now that I think back, there was a point in the beginning where I was, totally in learning mode in the beginning. I mean, I didn't know anything about business, about marketing. I mean, I came from the music business, and really all I had to do was focus on 3 minutes, which is a song, and we'd go and meet with people and play our songs. I mean, that was it. There was no technology really, unless you were on the audio recording end of it. So I didn't have to worry about that. But I do remember thinking, not so much with the book, but with the idea of coaching other people. I remember one of my first mentors saying, Ellen, you just have to be one step ahead of other people, and you do have a lot to offer, and plenty, go out there and start coaching. And that was a little intimidating to me. I don't quite feel that way now as much as I did back then about people just going and doing it and they're one step ahead, because now it's like when somebody comes to me, I've been doing this for 16 years. Somebody else goes to somebody and they go, oh, I just wrote a book. And then somebody goes, well, can you teach me how? And they just don't have the depth and length of experience that I have. I've worked with so many people. I've heard every excuse in the book. I've helped people with all kinds of different issues. So at this point, I would not go to somebody who just did something for the first time when there's plenty of people who really are experts. But that doesn't mean you can't help people, right? You just have to be honest. You have to be honest about where you are and what you can do and can't do. And you might even want to, if you're newer, you might even want to team up with somebody else so that you almost, like an apprentice or something, where you're really learning the craft.
And that's definitely great. Just to piggyback, Patricia, on what you were saying, there's a lot of times when we're going out, we're trying to figure out a whole bunch of different pieces, and we think that we know something that it seems common sense. But as one of my mentors puts it, don't be afraid to charge people or to offer people what you know that they don't. It may seem common sense to you, but is not necessarily to your audience. And that goes directly in line with like what you were just saying, Ellen, in terms of, going and writing it and getting better. Another story, and I'm blanking on the Navy SEAL who actually wrote it, which is really bothering me because, again, it's a story that my mentor and coach told me. But it's basically one day you're out there and you're doing something. Let's say you're playing basketball, right? And you're shooting the ball. You're missing 99 out of 100 shots, right? Because you absolutely stink. Next day, you keep doing it, and maybe you only miss 97 instead of the 99. And you keep doing it, and you keep doing it. And eventually, you know what? You don't stink as much anymore.
Right.
Right? And so it gets so much better to the point where now you become that expert, like Ellen was saying. After all of this time, it's now second nature. You no longer have to think about it. You know, there's a saying, practice makes perfect. It doesn't make perfect. It makes permanent.
Well, also there's the thing of, are you doing it right? Because if you keep doing it and you think you're getting better and better, but you're really not. I mean, that happened to me for a long time with marketing. I just wasn't very good at it, to be perfectly honest. I was very lucky when I got in 2004, nobody was doing what I was doing and people were throwing money at me. But after the recession in 2008, it was no longer like that. And I struggled. And so, and also the market, you know, keeps changing. I mean, we didn't have social media. It's embarrassing. We didn't have blogs. We didn't have webinars. I mean, we had webinars, but it was all audio. We didn't have video. And so things really changed. And one of the things, even 2018, I actually hit a second bottom where I was like, am I just going to quit or am I going to up level my skills? Because I was just kind of stuck with how far I could go with the skills that I had. And so it was perfect that COVID hit right at the time where I had just gotten into really a learning mode. And I really didn't work much last year. I just really focused on learning and it's really paying off. So, I mean, I encourage people to continue to learn.
Well, and
Right. I mean, last year for many.
Yeah, I wanted to ask, and I'll jump in here, Jennifer. What are some ways that business owners can use a book? We've talked a little bit about how everyone could have a book inside them. But I'm thinking now, I'm going to ask some questions along the line of specifically for some of my clients here too. So I've got a lot of questions in mind. But what are some ways that a business owner could use a book for a business owner out there who's thinking, well, I don't know if I should even be bothering to write a book?
Well, I'll tell you something. Somebody was just telling me a story the other day about this very accomplished psychologist, and she couldn't get on TV because she didn't have a book. So, you know, part of it is you just have more credibility with a book. There are opportunities that you will not get if you don't have a book. And that's why my company is Books Open Doors. When we were looking to rebrand, I was talking to my partner, Jeff J. Hunter. His company does the back end for all of our bestseller launches. And lucky for me, all of the like ones you would think of first were all taken. And so he said to me, well, you know, what is the core thing that people get? And I said, Books Open Doors. That's really the core of what I do. They open doors. They give you more opportunities. I had one client come to me who wanted to get on stages and he wasn't getting on stages. And he actually had like I can't think of what it's called now, not a PLF, but well, it was somebody who was letting other people use their book and however they wanted to use it. And
PLR?
Yeah. And I just said to him, well, why don't you make it more your own? And at first he was resistant, but then he did it. And afterwards he really thanked me because then he felt like it was his, like he could really own it. And within 6 weeks, he was on his first stage. So, you know, I have another client who ended up on a stage with, and he was on the same stage with Barack Obama. They were both talking at the same conference. So another one who ended up working with Kevin Harrington. So, you know, it opens doors. It just gives you so much more credibility. It can get you on podcasts. It can get you interviews. And you can also use them for, you know, free giveaways as a lead generation. You can use them as a front end to a funnel. You know, people are familiar with funnels. You can do the free plus shipping, and then you have offers behind that. So it just depends how you want to use it.
Nice. And I think
So,
there's
Ellen, let me ask you.
misconception too that sometimes your book has to be really thick. Some people think, oh, well, I don't have a Moby Dick or a War and Peace in me. So I can't write a book. But that's not really true, is it?
No, not true. I have a book that's not even a book because it wasn't big enough to be a book. It's just an ebook. It's called Turn Your Book into $10,000 Clients. And it was based on over 10 years of experience of how I started to get 10K clients, people who were paying me that much. So I think it's 30 pages. I have another one, 21 Simple Strategies to Jumpstart Your Book Marketing Online. That one's about 70 pages. So, it's really just a list of tips. And then, each one is explained as I go through the list. And then I have other books that are, 150, 180. It's good to try to keep them under 200 if it's not a reference book, because people don't read.
One point of context, though, if you are looking at having a printed book and you want to have writing on the spine, just keep in mind, by the way, 100 pages is that magic number that you can actually get the writing on the spine. Because otherwise, very often that is going to be an issue, especially if you self-publish your book, getting it out there in paperback form. So think about, from that perspective, what you're doing. But let me ask you, though, when you are looking at all of these ways to monetize the book in the business, right? Because you've written the book, you've gotten something from it, and you're trying to make money from it. Does it matter, ebook or printed book in that regard? Of course, the funnel really doesn't matter. If it's a good book, it's a good book. And a lot of people tend to also give their PDF version of the printed book, as a digital download so that they don't have to fulfill a hard copy. But when you are looking at it from that perspective, do you find any difference in that regard, how that may actually make a difference? Because some people may feel, oh my God, dealing with Amazon or other companies to get my book self-published may be a nightmare and a half. I know from personal experience, it's not exactly the most easiest process,
I'd like to hear more
if you will.
about I'd like to hear more about that. Why do you think that? I think it's so easy. Why do you think that?
There were numerous back and forth with the Amazon approval side. When my team was trying to get the covers approved, things just didn't work the way that they were supposed to, and colors didn't seem to work with what Amazon wanted to do, and there were a number of issues that came up, and what should have been a much easier process ended up being significantly more involved.
Okay, well, that's because you didn't
on my
work with
latest
us.
book. Yes, there you go.
Yeah, we make it really easy for people. I mean, when I go in there with people and we, just go through the process of publishing them, and if we run into a problem, I just bring my designer in and she fixes it in a minute and we're done. I mean, we just don't deal with nonsense. I mean, that's the difference. That's why you hire professionals. We do this all the time.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I will say I had one client one time where it was so weird. They just kept saying how his book wasn't right, and the book was right. It was Amazon's mistake, but it was right when they had gone over to KDP and they just didn't have their act together yet.
Always can be fun. So let me ask you, as we're looking at getting the book to the right people, right? Because having a book for the general public, if I am Daniel Silva, James Patterson, David Baldacci, the big names, they're going to get their book all over the place, and they're going to get onto the New York Times bestseller list and all of that, in addition to the Amazons and everything else. But for a lot of the folks listening today, the business people that are thinking about writing their book, how do they get the book into the right hands? Not just in a funnel, but, how do they actually get it that it's going to make that difference for them?
Well, first of all, I will say no, if you only got it to 0 people, it would still make a difference because you're going to continue to market yourself. And when you market yourself, you mention your book. So it really doesn't matter in that sense. But let's talk about #1 bestsellers for a minute. One of the reasons I love that what #1 bestsellers, I mean, when I started, we didn't have Kindle. So there was no ranking. And believe me, we made a lot more money. I mean, I wrote a book with Jim Edwards and we sent out like 3 emails or something and made 12 grand. So, it was really fun in those days. But the thing is that when people come to me and they haven't done any marketing and they don't have a community, that's what's so great about #1 bestsellers, because they can use that to actually build their list. And so you're getting it to #1 bestseller. So that's one way you're getting more credibility, and you can use it to build the list. So once you learn that process, you can do it over and over again. You can do the same book more than once. You can do more than one book. So it's like any other strategy, it's a process. And then the thing is, okay, are you going to be a New York Times bestseller, a USA bestseller, an Amazon bestseller? Well, it depends on how many books you can sell. So, I mean, the number keeps changing, but I've heard it's like 10,000 for New York Times and 6,000 for USA. And Amazon, it really depends on where you put it. But here's the thing about Amazon bestsellers. Yeah, you can game the system if you want and get nobody seeing it and get to #1. But what's the point of that? I mean, to me, the point is to get in front of your audience, which is what you're saying, right? So to do that, you want to get it in the right categories. You want to have the right title. You want to have the right cover. You want to attract your ideal clients. And that comes back to what we were saying before, which is you have to know who they are. So who are your ideal clients and how do you figure out who your ideal clients are? I mean, I remember when I was first starting out, I met Lori Morgan at one of the conferences and she was already well known and we hit it off. And I had her on a call and she was talking about how she had her avatar so honed in that they had a name and a family and how many kids and where they lived. And I was like completely freaked out. It was like, oh my God, I have no clue. I have no clue how she did that. But, so what I did was in the beginning, I just worked with everybody that I could work with. And by doing that, you see who do you like working with? Who do you not like working with? And then you start honing in and also who needs what you have and where are you in your journey? Because when I first started, I was working with a lot of authors who were broke, or next to broke, because I didn't know, I just, whoever wanted my help. And as my prices got higher, I had to reassess. When you get into 10,000, 15,000, 20,000 and more, well, those are not, a lot of people who are spiritual who think it's a crime to make money or something, So you have to change who your audience is. So my audience has not always been the same. And in the early years, I worked with a lot of kinds of people that today I wouldn't work with just because I don't find it interesting. So if I'm not interested, and if I don't believe in it, like sometimes I'll have somebody come to me and their story is so damn compelling, and they have something so incredible to offer that it's like, I will move mountains if I can to help them. I mean, I still have to get paid, but I will do whatever I can because their message has to get out,
Right. So just, obviously we were talking in terms of trying to get people in needing to work with you. I mean, here's a perfect example of 2 people that definitely would have benefited from you back in the day, if only you were around at the time. 2 little known folks, Jack Canfield and Mark Victor Hansen.
Yeah.
Now, for those of you that don't actually know the name, Google them, but they were the original authors of Chicken Soup for the Soul. And they shopped their book to 500 publishers, right? 500 publishers. The 500 first publishers said, I'll take a flyer on you, but they had to pay for the printing and all of the expenses of the book and ended up getting the book out. And they didn't make a ton of money. I mean, when they sold the franchise, they really didn't make a lot of money on it. But like you said, it got them on stages. Jack Canfield was a teacher, right? He was an
Right,
educator.
he was a teacher.
He's
Yeah, he
still
was.
going around and teaching people. I mean, he's incredible when you listen to him, when you meet him, when you just are in his space. You definitely know that he is there and everything. But let me ask you, though, a lot of us think we're going to make $1 million, right? Just because we have a book. And you kind of mentioned it before that it's going to finance the business. But
it's not going to finance the business.
Not going to finance the business.
Yeah.
But once we get the book out there and we are getting more opportunities, so we get on stages, we get interviews from the media, different podcasts, things along those lines. Does that naturally lead to more works that these people do with you, or is that something that you kind of have, well, I did it and I don't necessarily need more, because eventually you're going to run out of the steam, like in any business, right? What's the newest product that you have, right? If I wrote a book, Napoleon Hill, I mean, his stuff was ancient and it's still relevant today.
Right.
But yeah.
Well, I mean, I've written 9 books and I have a ton more in me. So, I mean, if you're the kind of person that likes to write books, keep writing them. I mean, I just did a post not that long ago and somebody reached out to me and we did a talk and I said, well, what was the thing that made you reach out to me? And she said 2 things. One was my story, which I haven't really told here today. I can tell it if you want me to. And the other thing was that I had written 9 books. I hadn't just written 1 book. I mean, I'm saying, I'm a book coach, but I've written 9 of them. So, and I've done a collaboration book, I've done a tip book, I've done a regular book. I mean, I've done a lot of different kinds of books too. And then I work with people who have done all different kinds of books that I've helped them with. So, yeah, you never run out in that sense. And also the marketing. I mean, the marketing, you can always learn more. And as I said, there's always things changing. But I want to go back to when you were asking about your ideal clients. You need to hang out where they are. I mean, that's the other thing. You need to get into networking groups, get into Facebook groups, go to conferences. You've got to be where your ideal clients are. And as you can command more money, you're going to have to spend more money, because you want to hang out with better people. You got to pay for that education, and it usually comes with networking and alumni and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah.
Right, like we've discussed before, when you have an opportunity to upgrade to VIP, that's where you want to go, because the same people are doing the same thing that you want to talk with. But
absolutely.
Ellen, let me ask you, though, as we're looking at possibly working with you, what exactly makes you stand out from doing it on our own or other potential people that may be in the same space?
Well, it's like I said, number one is I've just done a lot of it, and I've done it a lot of different ways. I have amazing testimonials. I created my signature program back in 2004, and it drives me crazy when people say it takes, years or months or whatever to write a book. I mean, the 21 Simple Strategies I wrote in 3 days. So yeah, there are different kinds of books, but I have a process that I teach just to make it really easy. And when you do it step by step, you get rid of a lot of the noise and the craziness. And as I said, part of it is doing the marketing research first. Part of it is not doing book research first. I mean, one of the things that people will do is they'll research their book when they don't even really know what they're writing yet, right? And so then they get all of this material, and then they're overwhelmed by the fact that they have all this material and they don't know what to do with it, because they don't know where it's going in the book. And the truth is 90 to 95% of it is not even going to end up in the book. So it actually can become a procrastination, strategy, if you will. And, so there are just certain things that I teach people to do, other things to not do. And I just have a knack for simplicity, taking things that are complex for people, making them easy. I put together a team where, as I was saying to you, we just can go in there and just do it easily. I mean, sometimes on posts, like I'll see a post and it'll say, we're looking for an editor, or we're looking for a formatter. I'll say affordable, right? And I won't compete on price, because I'm not going to be in a race to the bottom. I don't want those people. I want people who want quality. If you want a Mercedes, if you want a Rolls Royce, come to us. If you want to try to get by with a motorcycle, forget it. We're not interested. So, it just depends on, I think, valuing yourself, valuing your time, and, what you're willing to do to get it done, and how much aggravation you want, really. The other side of it too is that what you were talking about, being a Grammy nominated songwriter. I mean, I have very good communication skills. I'm great at listening to people. I can really pull out what their core is. A lot of book coaches don't get into marketing at all. I mean, I see this where they'll just say, okay, what's your why? And then they'll say, do a brainstorm. Well, again, if you don't know what your market wants, I can brainstorm all day long on something I want to do, but if nobody wants to buy it, I'm wasting my time.
So let me ask you about your Grammy-nominated songwriting career, because we haven't had anyone on here that has been nominated for, a major award like that. So let me ask you, I mean, obviously that's really exciting. Yes, a lot of us have,
and unexpected.
Thought about songs. Yes. Being recognized by your peers is amazing in that space, is incredible. Just out of curiosity, though, what song were you nominated for on that Grammy, if you can share that?
Yeah, sure. It's called I Could Get Used to This. It was on an album by a Grammy-winning artist. She's a jazz artist, Diane Shure, and the album is called Pure Sure. And you can find it on Amazon.
That is incredible. I mean, there's so much that you've done, so much that people can learn when they are working with you and when they're going through that. But Patricia, let me ask you though, you've been really quiet on our program today. There's a lot of things. I know that you've helped people ghostwrite books as well. And you've worked with Ellen in terms of some of the programs, I guess, in the past with what you've done. What would be the biggest recommendation that you can tell people that they should work with Ellen when they wanted to get their books going?
Work with Ellen.
Patricia was my second client ever.
Yeah, and she was really my first marketing coach, and I learned just so much from working with her. There was a lot I didn't learn, and I still have gaps in that area, but...
Well, then we should talk, because I've learned a lot more myself. Let me know what you want to learn. I'll let you know if I can help you, and if I can't, believe me, I got a great vendor list. So
yeah, well, I have sort of ghost written one book for a lady, and I'm in the process of a second one. And I'm glad that we had this conversation, because now I'm going to take him back and we're going to look at the marketing. We're going to go through Amazon and look what's there and keywords, and because he needs to market this, because it's marketing him. And I mean, that's really the point of the book for him, is to market it, and I have to convince him that he needs to target his target audience. He wants to do it in general, and I'm like, no. But yeah, if you have a book and you talk to Ellen, she will make your book fabulous. She will help you with the marketing. Like she says, she can put together a whole funnel. And I still have at least one. I have actually two co-authored books that, well, they're currently kind of shelved right now, but when I get ready to do them, I'm going to call on Ellen to help me.
There you go. So, Ellen, let me ask you, how does someone go about getting started working with you?
Well, I really suggest that people go and listen to the podcast because they'll really get a sense of what I do, how I do it. So that's a good thing to do. And you can go on my website. There's a contact form, and you can sign up and we can have a free consultation. It's called my bestseller breakthrough consultation. And I'll look at, what you have and what I think is the best direction for you to go. And if you have specific questions, I can answer those and either help you or, point you in the right direction with some other resources. You can also book at bookwithellen.com. That's probably the easiest, bookwithellen.com.
And Ellen, I have another question too about the types of books. Again, I'm thinking of some of my clients who don't have a book. I think you mentioned earlier, there are different types of books that can be written too, right? So if someone wanted to reach out to you and say, I just don't think that a book would fit my business at all, you'd be able to say to them, well, here's 20 types of books. Here's 50 types of books. It doesn't need to be a fiction novel. It doesn't need to be a how-to. You could steer people toward making that decision too, right?
Well, again, it depends on what's their, why are they writing it? Right?
Mhm.
What's it to do? And like, for instance, if it's a lead magnet on your website and you have a 7-step process, let's just say, maybe your book is going to be the 7 steps to whatever it is. If you're going to be speaking on stages, it might be more your story and the lessons that you learned. Right. Or maybe if you already have a book, maybe you need to write a Q&A because you're tired of answering the same questions over and over. I mean, it just depends. It just depends what it is,
Those are great ideas. Yeah. So again, I'm thinking some of our listeners who may think, oh, a book wouldn't fit in my business. Well, maybe Ellen can help you figure out how a book can fit in your business.
Right. A book can always fit in a business. There's no business that a book can't fit in. Right. I mean, look at Joe Polish.
Right. I mean, it doesn't
with cleaning. Right. But I want to go back to something you said
matter
before.
if you have a nail salon. Sorry.
Yeah. I want to go back to what you said about Canfield, because what they did was they got on radio and they did an interview every single day for a year. And there's another book called The Road Less Traveled by Scott Peck, and he was on the bestseller list for 12 years. And the reason it got off the bestseller list was because he died. So, never stop marketing at least one of your books. But a lot of times, people will give a year or 2 years to one book because of the marketing before they'll write another one. And I've seen other people say, oh, I wrote one too soon because I could have gotten more mileage out of the one I already had. So it's just something to think about.
So, Ellen, where else can people find you online?
Oh boy, they can find me on LinkedIn, Ellen Violette, and Twitter, Ellen Violette, and Instagram, which is Books Open Doors, the number 4 and the letter U. And let's see, Clubhouse, Ellen Violette. Did I miss one? Oh, Facebook. I have a Facebook group. I love my group, facebook.com/groups/Books Open Doors. And I'm in there every day. So that's a really great place to get to know me better.
And of course on Amazon.
And on Amazon, all my books. Well, not all my books. Actually, some of my books are on my website and not on Amazon. booksOpenDoors.com/books. Yeah, sometimes you write with somebody and it doesn't always work out that they'll let you do what you want to do. So sometimes it just ends up on the website.
Right. So friends, it's really important that you think about what it is that you're doing. Doesn't matter if you have a nail salon, if you're a construction company, if you're a plumbing company, if you are a Thank if you are a yoga studio. I mean, there's so many different ways you can possibly use books to help people and learn more about your story, what makes you different from everyone else, add to your credibility, add to your expertise, add to the value that people will get when they do work with you, and why it makes so much of a difference when you become that author. It's going to be a major benefit for you. And work with Ellen, find out what she can do for you in terms of your story, in terms of figuring out how to get what's in your head down onto paper, or more likely through the keys onto your computer screen and then onto paper. But either way, I mean, actually Daniel Silver writes out his books on yellow legal pads in pencil and then has it, actually put into print. So it doesn't matter how you write the book. The point is get out there, write, share your story, and it doesn't matter how big it is. It can be 6 pages as an ebook. It can be a 1,000-page book like, oh God, I'm blanking on what that was. It was the best of times, the worst of times. The Russian book. Come on, guys.
Didn't read. No.
Anna Karina.
It'll come to me as soon as we finish recording. But
Well, and if
whatever
you don't,
it is.
yeah, and if you don't think you can write, talk it. You know how to talk, and we don't edit our thoughts as much when we talk as when we write. People get really nuts sometimes when they try to write. So if that's you, don't write it. Just record it.
Right. And Patricia just reminded me, War and Peace is
War and Peace.
book. Thank you very much, Patricia. It was just stuck on the tip of my tongue. But yeah, the idea though is, doesn't matter how big the book is, if it's the right story, people are going to want to read it. We think about movies, right? Hour and a half or the 3.5-hour movies and everywhere in between. If it's a good story, people are going to stick around. People are going to learn from it. People are going to use it. Ellen is going to be the one that's going to help you figure out exactly how to move forward, how to get started, how to monetize your book and get the credibility that you are seeking to help you in your business. So again, look up bookwithellen.com to schedule your free call with Ellen. And Ellen, I wanted to thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. I also wanted to say that I do have a free gift for people. Can I tell them about that?
Absolutely. Please do.
Okay. So the free gift is Book Planning Secrets, a simple 4-step guide to writing a bestseller. And you can find that on the podcast page at booksopendoors.com/podcast.
Thank you. And we will include that link in the show notes. Thank you so much, Ellen.
Thank you.
And until next time, for Patricia, Daniel, myself, and Ellen, here is to your success.